What's up, Rebels? Sean Ogle of Location Rebel, and I say this every time we do a case study video, that it's one of my favorite things we do, and it's a special thing, and it is. It's always great to be able to tell the stories of our Location Rebel Academy members and what they've done and what they've built. But in the case of this particular one, it's extra special because we're chatting with Liz Froment, who has been in the community not quite since the beginning, but really close. And she also happens to have been working with me on Location Rebel for going on 6 or 7 years now. She's our community manager. She's the head of all of our content. She helps really cultivate the community and the content we have on the site in a really big way. But what's so great about it is she started out in the community just like everybody else. And to this day, her main business is she's still a freelance writer. That's what she does. And she makes way more money doing that than she does here with me at Location Rebel. So we're going to talk to her today a little bit about her journey, how she got started, how Location Rebel helped her, and kind of what she's doing now. So Liz, before I go any further, thank you for taking the time to finally do this.
Ta-da, in the flesh, no problem.
It's so funny because we do all sorts of members calls every month, and we'll talk for hours doing Q&As and all this kind of stuff, but we haven't done a case study with her. She's never been on the YouTube channel. She hasn't really been in the front of the scenes very much, so it's fun to do it.
Yeah. You're blowing my cover.
I know, bringing you out of the shadows.
I'm no longer just a voice on all the webinars in the background.
Yeah. Totally. So, basically because we are gearing up for our anniversary sale right now, there's a lot of people that are watching this and they're trying to decide, is Location Rebel Academy right for me? Is it the right fit? Is it going to be the thing that helps me achieve my goals and what I want to do? So before we go any further, I just want to tell your story a little bit. So tell me a little bit about before you joined Location Rebel, what were you doing? Were you happy? Why did you finally decide to join? And just tell me a little bit about kind of that origin story.
Yeah, I think it's probably similar to yours, right? So I went to college, was a business major, got a degree, got a finance job. That was, the fast track to success in the world. Ended up working for some relatively big name like financial brands, State Street. I'm from Boston, so State Street. And then I worked for KPMG, and I was put on all these cool assignments where I was sent to New York for a few weeks every month. And I just sort of along the path was still never quite happy with what I was doing. I mean, part of it I think was probably just the stressful environment, highly competitive sort of thing. But even when you're getting these kind of big name jobs where it's like amazing on your resume, it just wasn't great. And I wasn't feeling happy all the time. And I was like, what's going on?
Did you experience, I know I certainly did, where everyone's like, oh my gosh, you've got such a great job. How did you do that? And so you feel like you should be more appreciative of it than you really were. And you're like, yeah, but I'm not happy doing it.
Yeah, totally. And it's like you think about all the things like your parents want, it's like, oh, I live in New York City. I'm working for a hedge fund. I'm making good money. I can go anywhere and do what I want and have this great thing. And it's like, why do I still feel sort of miserable? I mean, not necessarily depressed, but just like every morning waking up thinking, oh God, that pit, in your stomach when you have to go to work and feeling upset and anxious on, Sunday nights. And it wasn't even necessarily the job in itself, which was fine. I was doing hedge fund accounting, which is the sexiest or most exciting thing in the world. And I had pretty good coworkers, and I had a lot of perks working at that company. I got to go to Knicks games and Giants games and black car ride home and free dinners and weekly massages, and it was kind of all those the Wolf of Wall Street, not quite that crazy type of stuff that you think of in your head when it's doing that. And it's still it wasn't great. And then you got the peak. Basically, I was sitting at my desk when the global financial crisis occurred. So that also put a big damper in it, where all of a sudden, it was even more stressful and people calling for their money and lots of stuff going on. So it was sort of, that was a line of demarcation for me where I just thought, this is crazy. Why am I being stressed out all the time? I got to find another job. Like, what's the opposite of super stressful financial Wall Street world?
Yeah. So when you were finally at that point, you're like, okay, like I got to do something. I'm not happy. This isn't cutting it. You stumbled across Location Rebel. So tell me about like what finally pushed you over the edge to join, and what those, first like 6 months were like when you joined the community.
Yeah, so I left the finance job and I went into academia. And so that was at Brown University. And that was like an actual culture shock for me from working in sort of a high paced, fast, stressful world of finance, that it was just so incredibly kind of boring. No offense,
Yeah.
Brown. It was a good job, and it was a fine job, and it had great benefits, and it was very easy, not very taxing, and I really enjoyed who I was working with. But even then, I still didn't have that same feeling I had. So I was thinking, okay, well, maybe it's not finance, maybe it's me. Something is like weird. Why isn't this ever working? Where everyone
Totally.
else sort of seems to be okay with their job, and it's like I'm not okay with it and feeling kind of the pressure. And it's like, what is that? What is
So
that
you're
feeling?
like, I was in a job I didn't like. Okay, we're going to try this new thing. Nope, that's still not doing it.
Exactly. And I remember I was sitting at my desk in my office, and I came across, and I think it was the Tropical MBA
Yeah.
podcast or website, and it was like, we're talking with this guy, Sean Ogle. And I was like, who's this guy? So I listened to the whole thing, and it was basically, I think, probably everyone who started around our time, sort of like late, 2009, 10, 11, somewhere in there, is like the Tim Ferriss 4-Hour Work Week. I remember
Yeah.
reading 4-Hour Work Week at my desk during my lunch breaks, and my boss being like, what is that? Trying to figure out what it was all about. So it was kind of, okay, you read the 4-Hour Work Week, you realize, even though it's obviously not a 4-hour work week, but
Right.
the concept of being able to do something online is sort of, triggered in your brain. Like, oh,
Yep.
okay, if this is a thing. Then I came across, it was basically like in the same month. Then I came across like Tropical MBA. Then it was like Meet Sean Ogle. Then I remember I went to your website, which was Location 180 at the time,
Right.
now Location Rebel, and read, I think, all the blog posts, and was just like, oh my God, this is amazing. Like, someone can do this. And I think it was a connection that we had a very similar background. Like, we went through the same stages. You also worked in finance. You're like, why isn't this working? You had moved to Thailand. I had moved back to Boston.
Yeah.
Well, Rhode Island at the time, slightly less exotic than, Bangkok. But it come back and was doing all the stuff. And I think it just sort of like set off a spark with me. And I remember I emailed, I think it was like a Friday, I emailed you that Friday, because
Yeah.
I had just spent the last like 2 days during my lunch break and my time, at work when I wasn't that busy, just doing stuff and thinking, this is amazing and it seems possible. And you seem like a genuine person. And that kind of kicked it off from there. And then, so I want to say that was probably the summer of 2011, something like that. And then you launched, I think I was in like the second launching of
Yep.
Location Rebel.
I went to Bali and launched it like
Yeah.
the real deal, and was like, if I'm gonna be a location rebel, we got to do this someplace exotic. And you join then. And so you get in the community. You're like, okay, like I'll see if I buy what this guy's selling. Like I'll see if like this is actually a thing. What happened in those first few months? Like, did you start making a ton of money right away, or did you actually start making the progress you had hoped to? Like, where did you end up?
It was a little bit up and down, unconventional story. I bought the course, and then basically I was like, oh my God, what am I doing? This is crazy. I can't do this. And then did basically nothing for like 2 months. And then because I had sort of, you had emailed me back, like now when we email, even anyone on our newsletter, anyone who emails, we email back. And I was thinking, I have kind of a online relationship with this guy,
With this
and it
random
seems,
guy that
yeah, well, it's like,
says
it
he's
seems
gonna help
like
me build a business.
yeah, it seems like a cool guy, and now I feel awkward that I bought the course and haven't done anything. So it's sort of that sort of pressure that I put on myself. Like, I didn't want to let down the Sean Ogle I had seen on Location 180,
Yeah.
and bought the course and do nothing. So then I went in, and the first thing I did really was go into the forums, and it was like that was kind of the light bulb moment. Yeah, for
Yeah.
me, it's like I found my people. So I think the fundamental change for me was just getting super active in the forums, even though it was uncomfortable and scary, and I didn't know what I was talking about, and I knew nothing on how to do anything.
Yeah.
But it was just jumping into the forums at that point, making friends with people in there, and then the big thing was getting into an accountability group with sort of like a group of 6 people that we met up every single week, online via Skype, And I knew that because I was going to be in that group and I had to share things with those people, that I had to make progress and do things.
Yeah, and it's interesting you mentioned that, because this is something I've been talking a little bit about recently on blogs and in emails. Is for me, there was two things that actually helped me be successful when I left my job and made that leap. And I mean, there's probably a variety of things, but two big things. One was the freelancing. One was being able to, do that to make an income, even if I wasn't like super in love with it or passionate about it. I was passionate about the lifestyle it afforded me and the freedom it afforded me. But the second thing is the accountability. It's like, everyone's like, oh, you're gonna be a solopreneur or lifestyle business. You're doing it on your own. It's like, no, that's the wrong way to look at it. Like, you need the support, because it's still, even today, it's still a relatively unconventional thing. Your friends and family are kind of like, well, I'm not sure if this is, maybe you shouldn't do this. And so finding those people that will help support you through the early stages is huge. And you had a really special accountability group. You had like 6 people you met every week for over a year. I mean, I think
Yeah,
you guys did for a few years.
a long
And
time.
I want to say almost every person that was a part of that group is now, you all met in Location Rebel in the Academy, and you all now have successful businesses on your own.
Yeah,
So
and
tell
we
me.
still keep in touch. Like one Lise, who's a member, Cartwright, is a huge successful author on Kindle. Like she has 1 million Kindle books. We wrote a book together, so she's doing amazingly well. Another person works for remotely for a big like search engine site. Another person is a consultant. So yeah, another person I think is another freelance writer consultant. So we still keep in touch, and all of us, I don't think it was a coincidence, who stayed in that group and kept going with it, were able to leave our jobs, build businesses, and we're
Yeah.
all still doing it now, 5 years later.
And it's so interesting because like everybody starts with freelancing, and some people continue it and that's their thing. And then for other people, the freelancing gives them the free time and the ability to say, okay, I'm going to pay my bills doing this, but for the other 20, 25 hours of the week, I'm going to like explore, a consulting gig, or being an author, or in my case was starting a golf website. Like, that's one of the cool things about Location Rebel, is just that, you get the accountability in the group, and you build the freelance business to build your income. And then from there, you've got so many options, and we include basically like everything to be able to do that. So it's not like, oh, you did this part of the course, now you got to spend more money and like buy this part and then buy this part. It's like you get it all. So it's like something that grows with you over the course of years. And have you kind of found that to be the case, both with yourself and just the people you've seen in the community over the last few years?
Yeah, totally. I think one of the things coming into it is you only think there are like 3 ways to make money online. And
Yeah,
there's literally millions of ways to do it. And it isn't even, you have to run your own business or be a freelancer or do this. I mean, there are people in there who learned a bunch of skills, quit the jobs that they had that they weren't happy in, and then got remote jobs with companies that they love, or switch fields completely. And they're like, well, I'm in a 9 to 5, but I actually love the job that I'm in now because I got skill set from doing other things. So I think
totally.
one thing we try to push in the forums, and I've definitely written about in newsletters, is like there is no one path and there's no one way, and it's a personal. For someone it might
Yeah,
be, I want to work 10 hours a week beyond my 9 to 5 and make $500 a month, and that's like my kids' daycare or my vacation fund or pays my
totally.
car insurance. And for other people, it's I want to be 100% solopreneur on my own and live in Thailand. And someone else might say I want to run a company and have 7 employees and do it all that way too. So there's
Yeah.
options for everyone, basically.
No, I think that's awesome. And that's one of the things you find is most people start in kind of a similar place, but then very quickly everybody has their own route for how they're going to get to. I guess there's never really a finish line, but get to whatever path they're going to be on. So one of the things that I want to talk a little bit about is just what you're doing now, because you're not working for Location Rebel full time. You're helping out with the content in the community, and you're a huge asset. Like, we could not do what we do without you. But your main thing is still freelance writing, and you've really built a successful freelance writing business where you're now making more money than you were back in your day jobs or things like that. Just share a little bit about that lifestyle. And I know there's been ups and downs, and it's like, it's not like it's always like, oh yeah, it's like everything's great. Like, as with anything, you've got your good days and your bad days. But talk a little bit about the successes you've had here over the last couple of years, and kind of some of the catalysts that shifted for that.
Yeah, totally. I mean, so freelance writing is basically my primary source of income. And I would say I've been doing it for 5 years. The first 3 years were a bit of a, a roller coaster ride. So thankfully I had saved money, put away knowing that I was going to quit my job once I went through the course and everything. So I stayed at my job for a year and saved money on the side, and then made sure I had clients coming in versus just taking the leap and not knowing anything.
Yep.
I had to move back with my family for a little while. So, that's something, but I was lucky enough that I was able to do that and have
Totally.
that support, and that makes it takes a lot of financial stress off of you. So might put added social stress on you, but in terms of the finances,
Well, and doing things to minimize stress while you're building a business is huge, because if you're just like, you know what, like I'm going to quit my job before I do anything else, and you still have to pay your bills, like that's a ton of stress. For me, I took a different approach and I said, well, I'm just going to move to Thailand. So I'm going to take, my $3,000 or $4,000 in bills a month and move it down to like $300 or $400 in bills a month. And that was kind of how I alleviated the stress. And then as I was making enough to move back, I moved back. So I think it's all about finding ways for you that you can, give yourself the mental space to focus on the business while minimizing stress as much as possible.
Yeah,
So I think that's great.
totally. It's like you can, do your own thing and, eat grilled cheese sandwiches and peanut butter every week, or kind of remove that stress out. So that was how I chose to do it. And then, so that was, the ups and downs. And I think probably the biggest problem for me with that is I wasn't taking the approach of it's a business. I was thinking, I do blogging, which is blogging is a business.
Yes.
And I had to switch kind of that mindset. And still, I think it was part of like a confidence issue. Part of it is just like exploring it and not exactly knowing, because like you said, it's still kind of new, in the world. Like people are bloggers, and bloggers can make $300,000 a year, but people still don't really believe it. There's
Totally.
various levels of the type of thing that you can do with everything. So that was kind of a big mental shift. And I would say probably like 2.5 years ago, I really kind of like locked in, made the mental shift. Part of it was, finding other people who were doing what I was doing. That's a big thing. Finding people who were doing what I was doing at the level that I wanted to do. So, kind of, it's better to be kind of the dumbest person in the room, even though that might feel uncomfortable to you. And especially if you're starting out and you're like, I know nothing, that's actually good. If you're willing to throw yourself into something where you don't know anything and you can sort of see the potential on the horizon, that was a huge kind of mindset shift for me.
And for me, I think that's one of the coolest things about Location Rebel is like, if you're sitting here watching this right now and you've got no idea how to start, you're like, I've never built anything online before, I'm not super internet or tech savvy, you jump in here and it's like, you're the rookie, you're the one who's just starting out. Well, you've got Liz and I, we've been doing this for a long time. You've got assets, you've got people that have been here, done that. We've both done freelance writing successfully, freelance SEO, blogging, YouTube. We've done all of these things. And then you've got over 3,000 community members that have all taken their own paths to do this and have different successful businesses. So you have people that are, making 6 figures a year with the type of business they want. And then you have people that are just starting out. And so coming in and just accepting, it's like, hey, I'm new at this. It's going to take me a while to learn, but I've got people that I can learn from is huge. And I think you got to a certain point with freelancing where you're like, okay, like I'm doing pretty well. Like, Location Rebel got me to the point where I'm making like $3 to $5 grand a month. Now I want to really, move into like the 6-figure territory with my freelancing, and you found freelance, writers that were doing 6 figures and started surrounding yourself with them. So I think that, it was an interesting point you meant up that you brought up that I just kind of wanted to elaborate on.
Yeah, totally. I think that's a huge part of it. And one of the reasons why I think I push so hard for people to get in the forums, because it's like, that's a great way to learn. And even me, who, is theoretically at a higher level than some people in there, I learn stuff all the time from people that other freelance writers, other ways to approach things, other people who contribute something or share a tool or a tip or a strategy that I never even in a million years thought of. And I was like, oh, wow, that's awesome. I can use that going forward for other things.
I think that's a cool aspect of the forum, and you especially. It's like, it's kind of a dumping ground for all sorts of different information. When you're all looking at different blogs or different stories or hearing, different articles or watching different videos. Like people share all that stuff. So you're great about it. It's like, hey, like there's this job opportunity, or hey, there's this new strategy for pitching clients or whatever. All of that stuff gets talked about on top of everything that's in the blueprints that we update on, every like 2 or 3 months we're updating the different blueprints. So it's not like it's just a static thing. It's like it's every day there's conversations happening to keep you up to date and teach you things you probably didn't know, which I think is pretty cool.
Yeah, totally. I mean, it's like the goal is for you, for you, the student, the location rebel member, is to not think it's okay to take 2 cents a word jobs and bust your ass and make no money, and then think after 2 months, well, this sucks. I spent 60 hours and made $50 and forget it. Like, no, that is not the point. The goal is for you to make 50, 60, 70,000 or whatever you want to do, up to 6 figures or more. And it's like, one of the things I saw someone on Twitter the other day, or another freelance writer that I follow, is said like a big mindset shift for writing or for freelancers in general is there is no limit on what you can make.
Yep.
Like, you can make
and
zero.
that's powerful. Totally.
Yeah, but there's no limit on what you can make. You could make $1 million if you have the luck and the skill and the connections and the niche. Obviously depends on lots of different factors that go into it, but it's a lot more realistic than I thought. I was, when I first thought of the concept of doing it all, it was like, oh, it'd be cool if I can make like 50 grand or whatever. That would be amazing. And it's like now already gone past that. So it's like in the last 2.5 years, I made more than what I've made when I left my job at Brown, and then last year I made more than what I made at the hedge fund. And then I'm sneaking up towards the kind of the ultimate goal number, which doesn't feel like it's insanely out of reach from kind of making the leap and being focused on doing all the jumps of thinking about being a business and doing all that stuff. And that's the stuff that like I share all the time in the forums, not how to do stuff on Upwork, like how to pitch clients that are going to pay you $400 for a post, or how to,
like, I'm going to look at this from a higher level. How do you get this to the point where you really want to be, and the like ultimate goal, and skip the years of trial and error that you and I have both gone through to get there?
Exactly.
Talk about that a little bit, because that's your goal. When people come in, like you've spent thousands of hours going through this, and you're like, hey, I don't want you to have to do this. I'm trying to help you like bypass like years of like mistakes I made so that you can just focus on the right things.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what you do.
Yeah, if I had like started now 3 years ago, I'd be talking to you like on a tropical island somewhere with all my money, not in my apartment. But yeah, so like that's the goal. I made a bunch of mistakes because I sort of didn't have my stuff together.
Yeah.
And figuring out what was going on and taking things seriously, and doing what we preach now is about consistency and commitment and focusing on one thing and not chasing the the shiny objects of what you think is going to make money super quick.
Totally.
So it's sort of that part of the mindset. It's like, yes, we all want to make money really quick, but like you want to build the base where you can consistently make repeatable income all the time. And I say to people, even now, a few years into freelancing, my income is remarkably consistent. I have some months where it's like, oh, all right, awesome, like made a ton of money, but I rarely ever go below a certain number. And it's just like that's still more than I was making when I was in my job. So I'm not seeing sort of the peaks and valleys anymore. It might be peak and valley, but it's sort of the peak and valley. The valley of now is sort of the peak of, so you can see my fingers, a few years ago, that type of thing.
And just to, because there's, I don't want to take up too much more of your time, but it's one of those things where, someone's thinking about, it's like, okay, well, it's like, well, give me a tangible thing that like, you say I can make $1 million as a freelance writer. Obviously, very few people do that, but you certainly can make, a full-time income more than you're making now, 6 figures. But talk a little bit about the role that copywriting plays and knowing how to send like proper emails, because in Location Rebel, we have an entire course. When you join, you're going to get a whole course that's all about how to send an email and how to actually pitch someone and how to get a positive response and not just get ignored. So talk a little bit about that course, how it plays into being able to build that freelance business, and how copywriting and being persuasive with your words, and how the location level resources play into starting to grow that freelance business.
Yeah, I'll say on that now I'm on the receiving end of emails all the time. Being on
Yeah.
our location level email, we get pitches constantly from people. People are remarkably bad at sending
Yeah.
emails.
Right.
It's sort of incredible. So I think a weird mental mind flex that you can think about, and what I try to tell people in the forums is like, you don't actually have to be that good at something, because
Yeah.
the majority of people are not, and are not putting in that much effort. So I look at it as if you just put in, and I think that my secret sauce, so to speak, for writing stuff is essentially, I try to be like, a 7.5, 8 writer, a 10 super responsive,
Yep.
and 10 hitting every deadline. And like
Yes,
that's
totally.
the formula. If you can hit every deadline and you reply responsive to people's emails, and I'll get back to your other thing in a minute. That's like that puts you ahead of basically 95% of people, and will
Totally.
get you to get work back over and over again. So that was kind of a tested and true lesson that I had to learn, because I did the same thing that everyone else does. I said, dear, client, my name is Liz Froment. I'm an experienced SEO writer with a college degree. I think I can write unique and wonderful articles for your site. Please contact me. And
Yeah.
wow, I got no responses to every
Who would have
single
thought?
one of those
And
emails.
someone who's sitting here listening to this might be like, oh, I thought that was how you, like, that was, yeah, that's what I've been doing, or that's what I was thinking about doing. No, that's the wrong way to do it. We teach you the right way to do it. It's not that.
So the good thing about a lot of these courses is like the how to pitch emails and the content writing blueprint, which includes copywriting, all that stuff. That is actually tried and true lessons of things that work. All those
Yes.
sample emails in that course are emails I have sent and I'm still sending, that actually get, people's responses back.
Yep.
So, and that's honestly 90% of the game, is getting your foot in the door. And it,
Totally.
and I think people get a little discouraged in the beginning, which is true. It's just, sometimes it's just a numbers game. You have to send out tons and tons and tons of contacts. And I'm a member of a writers group, and we do a marketing challenge every, couple times a year. And these are people who are writing for the New York Times and Washington
Yeah.
Post, and 6-figure writers. And they're still saying, I'm sending out 50 pitches a week, 50 letters of introduction a week, and that's just what you have to do. So it doesn't even matter if you're, John writing for, sleepblog.com, or Susie writing for the New York Times. Like,
Right.
that's sort of the stuff.
And that sounds, I think that sounds a lot more daunting than it is. Like, don't be discouraged if you're like, oh my God, like, how am I going to do this? It's like, don't worry, we got you. Like, it is not as scary as it sounds. It's not as difficult as it sounds. And what's great about it is when you do it this way, in the proper way, you're building real relationships. You're actually getting like human interaction, as opposed to just like writing like a carbon copy thing that you're sending out to the same like 500 people. So, so don't be scared off by that.
Yeah.
So
and we show you in the content writing blueprint, the basically step by step how to do it. The blueprint is essentially what I have done, and taking things from other people that I've used to move through the process. And the reality is that you kind of be shocked at how much of a scalable, repeatable process it is.
Yep.
All the time. And the more successful, the more freelancers I know are the people that essentially just go through a checklist. They do the same
Totally.
like 5 things every single week when it comes to writing emails. We have templates, an email template that's not the template I read out, but
Right.
you can tweak the sentences here and there, you add in 2 extra things. It still takes you 5 minutes to write, send out, and your chances of getting responses are higher. And it's just, all you really need is getting that first foot in the door and getting that first response. And then we teach you how to flip it to, the next thing and the next thing and the next thing. And then it's just really honestly repeating the process over and over and over again until it's second nature. I have a giant spreadsheet that I share that lists every single person I contact with. And so if you say, oh, you need to send out, 50 emails, well, then I just go to the spreadsheet and
It's like, who haven't I talked to, or who do I need to go to?
Exactly.
Sure.
So I mean, it's just about getting like the goals and the habits right, I think, at first,
Yeah.
and building, like, laying the groundwork, and honestly not necessarily focusing deeply on kind of the money part at first, but like the building blocks for success. If you have the
Totally.
right base and then you just kind of do it over and over again, it becomes second nature, essentially.
Absolutely. So with that, I don't want to take up too much more of your time. I don't want to take too much your time, that are watching this. But I ask everyone I do a case study with, I ask them the same question. The person who's watching this and they're on the fence, they're not sure if this process is right for them. They're not sure if Location Rebel's like the real deal. They're not sure, they're on the fence. They don't know what to do. What advice would you give to that person?
I think the biggest advice would be to, I guess, give it a shot. I mean, it sort of seems like a weird answer, but it's like, realize that it is possible. People aren't just saying it's possible. It is actually possible. I'm proof. We have other members who are proof too. Realize that, you can put in hard work and a few hours every day, or the hours when you have time, and move things forward. And you could be in a completely different scenario a year from now
Yeah.
than you were a year ago. If I was sitting at my desk watching the market crash in New York City thinking, however many years from now, I'd be working for myself, making more money. I was just in England for 2 weeks and Boston for 2 weeks, and I already have 2 other trips planned this year, and just work from my laptop and have a super stress-free life where you can kind of get up and meet you, work at a coffee shop, and do all the
Yep.
stuff and have the freedom to do what you want. I would have thought it wasn't possible. But so I think we're just conditioned to think that it's not possible, and it totally is possible. So if it's something that you really want to do and you want to move forward, I think the biggest thing you can do is take the leap, and
Yeah.
then find people who can help you and support you and encourage you and guide you
Yeah.
through the process, because I think community is a huge part of it.
Yeah. And this reminded me of a story. And again, don't want to take up too much time, but like, I feel like I got to tell the story. So,
Oh boy.
in a recent email, I talked about how I used to get really depressed in the summer because like there was all these things I wanted to do, and I had my suit and tie, and I was out of vacation days. And so in 2009, it's middle of the summer, it was July, like 26th ish. And the Oregon Brewers Festival is going on. It's my favorite event of the year. It's down on the waterfront. You get all these beers. Everybody hangs out. It's a ton of fun. And like I remember like watching, like looking out my office at the people that were going to this thing, and I couldn't go because I still had to work. I was like, it's such a bummer. Well, fast forward 10 years, literally 10 years to the day, July 26th, which is 8 years to the day that we created Location Rebel Academy. So we're gearing up for our anniversary sale. That's what this is all about. But you're living in Portland now. And so
Yep.
on the anniversary of Location Rebel, on the 10-year anniversary of me being in my job and being depressed, not being able to do that, you and I went to the Brewers Festival, and
Yes.
like it was on like 2 o'clock on a Thursday or Friday or whatever it was. And like I'm just thinking back about that. I was like, to see how far things have come, to see how far like you've come from being in Boston and Rhode Island and now being out in Portland, not necessarily because of me, just because this is where you wanted to be. That just shows kind of what's possible with this lifestyle. And I think that's, it's important for me to remind myself of things like that because, we're very fortunate and we're privileged and we've put in the work to make it happen, but we're also not unique. Anybody can do this. At least that's kind of what I believe.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's great to know that you can just say, yeah, on a Wednesday or a Thursday at 2 and 3 in the afternoon, and just go out and, meet a friend or have a coffee or have happy hour or
Totally.
go to the movies or do whatever, and know that you're still doing all your client work and you got money in the bank, and life is good to enjoy the sunshine while you can.
Absolutely. Well, Liz, thank you so much, not only for everything you've done over the years with Location Rebel, but for taking the time to actually get, in front of the camera now, to put yourself out there, tell your story a little bit. If you're on the fence or if you're thinking about joining Location Rebel, first off, send me an email, sean@locationrebel.com. If you don't want to hear from me and you want to hear from Liz, who actually like went through the whole course, liz@locationrebel.com. Very easy to get a hold of. But we'd love to have you in the community. If you have any questions, leave a comment below. We've got over 3,000 people now from over 40 different countries doing exactly this type of work. We've got hundreds of case studies, hundreds of success stories, and would honestly love for you to be a part of our community and to help you build that business. So if that's something you want to do, there's a link below. Shoot me an email. Let's talk about it. Let's make it happen. And Liz, I'm looking forward to the next Beer Fest and talking to you soon.
Absolutely. We'll see you in the forums.
Yes. All right. Thanks, guys.
Bye.